Yo, what is up, my people? It's your boy Lou Ciccone back with another video for y'all today. So today we are going to take a look at Dr. Umar Johnson commenting on why he does not agree with church. And in particular, it seems like the black church. So he's got a problem with black people being Christians by the sound of this. And I think he just got a problem with church in general. So let's take a quick look at this clip. I'm going to leave the link for the entire video in the description so you can see it without my commentary if you prefer. But let's go ahead and roll this and let's chop it up about this.
You put your money in the church bucket. What do you get back? Hope in a future after you die. In my position on that, if I have to die to experience heaven, I don't need that religion. Anyone who tells me that I should be content with accepting hell on earth when the white man has his heaven here, and the Chinese man has his heaven here, and the Arab and East Indian has his heaven here, and they're even building their heaven in my ghetto, and you're telling me I got to die in order to experience what they are getting right now? That's a religion I don't need, because that's a religion for servitude.
He says that Christianity tells him that in order for him to experience heaven, he has to die, right? He has to die to experience heaven. Wow, he's contrasting that and saying that other folks are already experiencing heaven. So that right there tells you from the jump how his idea of eternity and the blessedness and how good eternity is. And I'm talking about eternity with God in heaven. So there's a little bit of eschatology here, right? So the new heavens and the new earth is really what we're talking about when we refer to the eternal state. The Bible tells us that no eye has seen or no ear has heard the things that God has prepared for those who love him. And this idea that heaven is simply about having things, right? So this idea of because he's really just talking about wealth here. One, of course, his idea is distorted because all these other races are not experiencing heaven on earth just because they have money. They're in a place where there is sickness, there's death, there's cancer, there's hurt, there's all these terrible things that people have to deal with. And yet he still calls that heaven simply because he's assuming his premise here is that they have more wealth. So he's assuming that wealth is what makes heaven good, right? When that couldn't be further from the truth as far as biblical truth is concerned, because what makes heaven good is spending the rest of eternity. That phrase, that doesn't even make sense, but spending eternity with God forever. We're spending eternity with Jesus, the Father, and the Holy Spirit, and the saints who have put their faith in Christ, who have endured till the end and are now in the eternal state, reaping the reward for placing their faith in him. When you understand the goodness of God, when you start to get a better picture of the goodness of God, that's when you realize that all these things they matter less. We're in a world that is fleeting, right? We're not about money. We're not here to amass wealth and to just basically get that and say that we've made it and that our lives are perfect because we have money. That's not what we're here for. So his idea of heaven itself is very shallow, massive lack of understanding of what Christians believe and what we're waiting for and what we're anticipating when we think about heaven. There's more poor white people in America than they are poor black people. Okay, so that just doesn't make sense. If you really had to break this down, you would see that this whole idea falls apart. It falls apart drastically. And even if you think about Asian people, right? Let's just talk about just China, right? China alone, right? If you talk about China alone, China has a huge population, right? How many people are poor in China? There's a lot more. If you just take the poor people in China and contrast how many of them there are versus how many poor black people there are, the difference is so vast that your calculator would break trying to calculate it. You know what I'm saying? So this just shows you again that just this narrow-minded thinking. And I mean, this, you know how, he sounds like super intelligent and all that stuff, but all he's thinking about for him, his world is just the black experience in America, and according to his interpretation of it, and he's not even thinking about the entire world, right? The entire world and what the experience of various people groups actually is. So obviously, right from the beginning there, we see that there are some problems with his synopsis. Let's keep it moving, and let's go on to the next point over here.
And so we have to put the black church to task and ask them, what are you doing with our Jesus money? Let me tell you what they're doing with your Jesus money. Every black church in America has their money in a white bank. It is the white banks that are funding the regentrification ethnic cleansing movement. So all of us go to church. We put $3 million in the church coffers every Sunday. $3 million goes to a white bank every Sunday. And guess what they do on Monday? They take $3 million of black people's white Jesus money and they give loans to white land developers and businesses and entrepreneurs to come into the ghetto where the church is located, buy up all the property, and force grandma out on the street homeless. Now, grandma been going to that church for 30 years. Grandma been giving that church $50 every Sunday. And lo and behold, grandma had to finally face the reality that it was your Jesus money that put your ass on the street.
Is it just black churches that put their money in these quote unquote white banks? Is it only black churches that do that? Don't the mosques put their money in some sort of bank, right? Don't other religions I would assume that, Hebrew Israelites have got bank accounts somewhere too, right? I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but he is making it sound like it's only black churches that put their money in the bank. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to grant him the idea that the churches, the banks are white owned, okay? Just for the sake of argument, let's just say that, okay? The banks there are white banks, and there are black churches putting their money in white banks. Where are the mosques and the Muslim associations putting their money in? They're also putting their money in banks, right? And if the whole part of this argument is that majority of the banks are owned by white people, then that means every other faith group is probably putting their money in these same banks. The point I'm making is everybody's putting their money in the banks. It's not just the black church putting their money in these banks, these quote unquote white banks. And you'll see that a lot of times when people want to make these arguments and it's against Christianity, they will forget to mention things like that. They'll make it only look like it's only Christians who do this stuff. The issue really isn't about black people putting their money into church, but it is an issue about trying to, again, put some sort of blame exclusively on Christianity for somehow invading the black community and fooling people with Jesus and then causing them to invest in these banks where they are actually being victimized by these same banks because the banks are giving people money to buy out their neighborhoods and force them out of the neighborhood.
I am team gentrification. And I know people don't like that, but I live here in Atlanta, and my alma mater is right there in the heart of downtown Atlanta. And I go down there periodically, quite often. So we'll go do a little tour, and I'll show people like, oh yeah, this was this kind of building when I was in college, or this was a house here when I was in college, or whatever like that. And the thing I notice is there's a lot of less melanated people in the AUC now, it used to be predominantly a black area. One of the things I think people are missing is that, and I've had this conversation before, is that a lot of the places that they're now building up and they're gentrifying, as people like to use that term, I said a lot of those were crack houses when we were in college, y'all. I said nothing stopped our alumni from buying up all those crack houses. And Big Mama's house that was right next to the meth lab, nothing would have stopped us from buying those up. We just didn't do it.
Right.
Now you're mad because a developers bought it and turned it into a Starbucks and a Krispy Kreme. That's not their fault. That's not their fault. That is the fault of ours that we didn't take care of our area. Those were crack houses when we was in school, y'all. So stop acting brand new. They weren't palaces. They were suspect at best. Now that somebody's done it, then all of a sudden everybody gets high posts. And well, why didn't you tell us about it? Well, sir, ma'am, you wasn't thinking about them.
So notice this narrative that he creates using grandma as the character here, who is being victimized by, unwillingly being victimized, by the way, by the black church, really, by the banks, by way of the black church duping her into giving money. Now, if you get caught up in what he is saying, you can actually miss the point, or miss the moment where you actually start to consider how grandma got in this situation, right? He makes it look as though grandma is simply a victim of the black church, and all these bad things have happened to her because the the white man has been against her, and there's this conspiracy to make and keep grandma poor her whole life. And he doesn't even for a moment allow you to think that if grandma is single and she's by herself at this point, and she's financially struggling at this point, it may just be because of the factors that people who are actually thinking critically will bring up may have caused this. And those factors are, one, the deterioration of the black family. Because why is grandma by herself? Is because likely in this scenario, okay, I'm just going to say it like in this scenario, because when I heard grandma, I'm thinking single grandma, right? So grandma could be single, most likely single, because she never got married, but she has kids, obviously, because she is a grandma. And she got married to the government because she knew, or she was aware that she could have these kids. She didn't need no man, and that they would be taken care of. She would have access to welfare, being stuck in this trap of not pursuing the opportunities that could actually get her out of poverty. So dudes like Umar Johnson are always going to try to sell you these ideas. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Don't be fooled by this stuff, no matter how intelligent it sounds. When you challenge, or when you really get down and analyze these arguments, they got lots of potholes in them. They got potholes, they got holes in them. This joint look like Swiss cheese, all right? This stuff is not solid at all. So that's all I got for y'all today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And if then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth, all right? God bless y'all, and I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.